Huntingburg held its annual State of the City addresses today. More on what that message was, plus Holiday World and Splash and Safari made some unique history yesterday, and 2013 Daviess County Fair Queen Ellie Jarrett is tonight's guest on Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin tonight with a city like no other. That was the theme of this morning's State of the City addresses in Huntingburg. This morning, Huntingburg Mayor Denny Spinner and Southwest DuBois School Superintendent Mike Eineman delivered the State of the City and School System addresses in front of a crowd gathered at Old Town Hall. During his speech, Spinner largely focused on the many improvements made internally in the city. He highlighted several equipment purchases and other changes that were made without affecting the city's tax rate. Spinner also looked ahead to the future and what winning the Stellar Communities designation could provide for Huntingburg. Spinner says just being a finalist for that designation will have a huge impact on the future, regardless of whether or not the city wins.
The Stellar Communities designation has been a big focus for us in the last 2 or 3 months, and we're very confident about our proposal. And what it lays out to us is an opportunity to really make some significant changes in our community in the next 3 to 4 years. And should we not get the Stellar Community designation, what the end of this process has done is created a plan that we can follow that will get these projects done. It may not be in the time frame that Stellar would provide, but these are all projects that we can get behind and make significant improvement for our city.
Meanwhile, Eineman pointed to steady enrollment and good test scores over the last several years as examples of how good things have been for the school district. He told those on hand that keeping the enrollment steady will be very important heading into the future. Eineman also talked about continuing to get students to graduate and challenges that are associated with statewide testing. He says the process can be a bit of a balancing act for schools at times.
We get graded as a corporation as to how we score on tests and our graduation rates, and it is tough as a principal. You know, I always talk to Mr. Murphy when he's assistant. You know, what do we emphasize? We want kids to graduate, but we also want them to pass the test. Well, if we force the test on them more so, then do they get bummed out and get disgusted and get disinterested because maybe they didn't pass it the first time and so on. So it's a double-edged sword. But bottom line is we want students to graduate. You know, we can make some differences and make up for some things with some testing. So they can take it a couple years after their sophomore year and have a chance to pass. But, you know, we want our kids to graduate and be productive citizens in the community.
Eineman says students have the opportunity to retake the test in later years to pass it in order to graduate and become a productive part of the Huntingburg community. Now, this morning's event was put on by the Huntingburg Chamber of Commerce. The event was part of the Chamber's ongoing business education series. In other news this evening, local law enforcement were kept busy last night with a pair of arrests. We begin with a DuBois man wanted on warrant in a child support case, now facing additional charges for drug possession. DuBois County Sheriff's deputies say 30-year-old Robert Rashi was wanted on warrant for contempt in the aforementioned child support case. Just before midnight last night, a deputy spotted Rashi leaving a business at 36th and Newton Streets. Rashi was pulled over in the 4000 block of Newton Street where deputies found drugs and paraphernalia. Rashi was booked into the DuBois County Security Center early this morning on Class D felony counts of illegal possession of Schedule II controlled substances and possession of paraphernalia. Then, a Huntingburg woman who was wanted on warrant in Perry County was arrested after she was pulled over for speeding last night. Just after 6 p.m., a Jasper police officer stopped a car driven by 27-year-old Brittany Heim at the intersection of Meridian Road and Rumback Avenue for speeding. During the investigation, police found that Heim was wanted on a Perry County warrant for failing to appear in court. That warrant stemmed from charges Heim faced for driving while suspended with a prior conviction. Heim was taken to the DuBois County Security Center. Jasper Police and the Community Strike Force Against Crime are now offering another reward. They are offering a $500 reward for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the person or people who are responsible for vandalizing the high jump mats at Jerry Brewer Alumni Stadium this past weekend. Police say the vandalism took place at the facility sometime between 10 o'clock on Saturday morning and 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. The person or people responsible cut a cover and a top layer of padding on the high jump pad, which will cost about $2,000 to repair. A full replacement will cost roughly $9,000. Anyone who has any information on this incident is asked to call Jasper Police at 482-2255. You can also call the department's anonymous tip line at 481-COPS. The City of Jasper is now moving forward with selling 3 properties. Last night, the Jasper City Council discussed the process for selling those properties. The land for sale includes an area along Lechner Lane, Truman Road, and the underutilized 30th Street Park area. The city will likely take the properties to a public auction process, though the details of that have yet to be ironed out. Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz says the land sale is a continuation of plans that were made following the purchase of the Parklands property.
Council has put up for sale, through the recommendation of the Board of Works, 3 properties being held by the City of Jasper. One is the underutilized city park called 30th Street Park. The other is a property known as a Lechner property, which is west of Precious Blood School. And the third property is a kind of a valley area that we picked up in some right-of-way when we did St. Charles Street. It's at the corner of Truman and St. Charles. All of those are going to be put up for sale in a public auction process. When and how that will be done will be determined by the city after tonight's vote, but we decided rather than do bids that we would take it to an auctioneer and have a public auction on those, and then we would be able to again probably take that money. Our intention was, as we purchased the Parklands property, was to leverage city property that we own to help essentially pay back that borrowing that we did from our rainy day fund. So this starts that process.
Also last night, electric rates in Jasper are now set to go up by 6%. The council formally approved a resolution for that increase. The increase was originally approved by the Jasper Utility Board during their May meeting. This will mark the first rate increase in Jasper for 6 years, thus the increase amounts to 1% a year for that 6-year time period. A report of suspicious activity and strange smells coming from a Washington residence resulted in 5 people being arrested in a drug raid. Just after 10 o'clock on Tuesday evening, Washington police were contacted by a neighbor about the issues at Apartment A in the 500 block of North Meridian Street. When they arrived on scene, police say the door to the apartment was open and the apartment was full of smoke. Officers also reported a strong chemical smell coming from the apartment. After getting a search warrant and searching the premises, officers took 25-year-old Jesse Arnold, 25-year-old Marcus Wagler, 21-year-old Patience Cross, 29-year-old Nicole Young, and 19-year-old Haley Burris into custody. All are facing several drug-related charges ranging from conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamine to visiting a common nuisance. Burris has already posted bond, while the other 4 are being held without bond. Police say the man who lived at the apartment, 26-year-old Chaz Lingacher, is still at large and is wanted for questioning. He fled the apartment once police arrived. Just after 10:40 Tuesday evening, a vehicle was reported stolen from a residence in the 600 block of West Walnut Street. It's not clear at this point if the 2 incidents are related. The Lagodi School Board has reached a settlement with its former superintendent. Earlier this week, the board approved the agreement with former Superintendent Larry Whitecamp during its monthly meeting. Under this deal, Whitecamp will fully retire from the district but will be paid for the remainder of his contract. That amounts up to just over $116,300 a year over 5 years. The original contract called for the district to pay Whitecamp more than $105,800 by June of 2015. It was announced during last month's board meeting that Whitecamp was still under contract. Now, Whitecamp resigned suddenly back in September of last year. Laura Mattingly Hannum, who serves as a primary principal for the district, was promoted to be interim superintendent while the search for a permanent replacement occurred. Shoals Superintendent Joan Keller was appointed to that position last month. School officials have not said to this point why Whitecamp resigned. Whitecamp's retirement was also voted on and accepted during this week's meeting. Whitecamp worked in education for more than 40 years. On a related note, Mattingly Hannum is retiring at the end of this month. She served as a teacher and administrator for more than 30 years. Finally this evening, Holiday World and Splash and Safari now has another designation, and this one made a bit of history. Yesterday afternoon, the park was designated as a storm-ready site by the National Weather Service's Paducah office. Holiday World is the first theme park in the Paducah region of the Weather Service to get this designation. The designation starts with this year and runs through a 3-year period up to 2016. Rick Shanklin is the warning coordination meteorologist for the NWS's Paducah office. He is hopeful that Holiday World's designation will convince other attractions to follow suit.
This is the first theme park in our region that our National Weather Service in Paducah covers. So we're hoping that other theme parks, and not just theme parks, but any type of outdoor venues that are organized in particular, sees this and says, hey, we can do that same thing. It does take some effort, but on the other hand, probably many entities are already doing some, perhaps most of what's already necessary. So it's just completing that process.
Shanklin says the amount of effort that Holiday World has put into this whole process is what makes them stand out. Meanwhile, Holiday World and Splash and Safari President Matt Eckert says the designation shows just how important safety is to both the park and its staff.
To get this storm-ready designation is huge. It's a huge honor for Holiday World, Splash and Safari. Safety is our #1 cornerstone here at the park. We operate on 4 cornerstones: safety, service, friendliness, and cleanliness, and we take all of them very seriously. But clearly, safety is our #1 priority. I have 3 children of my own, and I want to make sure that when families bring their children here, they feel safe. And part of that safety is, we do have many weather events that can affect their trip throughout their visit, and we want to make sure that we're well prepared and that we're knowledgeable of those events that are coming, so that we can make sure we communicate that to our guests and they can plan accordingly.
Eckert says getting this designation was a process that took several years. He says new equipment like a backup generator and communications equipment, along with going through storm spotter training, played a part in the process. On a bit of a related note, construction on a major expansion project at Holiday World is now well underway. Eckert says the work got underway within the last couple of months, though the project has been in the works for many years. Eckert says the project will yield a new attraction for the park, though he did not confirm or deny what that attraction might be. Eckert says there has been a lot of speculation on the internet as to what is being built at the park. He says it's all been interesting to watch.
I'm totally enjoying all of the speculation of what could be going on here. A good place to go is Theme Park Review or Coaster Buzz, and there's every possible explanation of what we could be doing out there, and it's great. And some may be right, some may not, and you just never know.
A formal announcement is set for July 24th. The expansion is now being touted as the largest one in the park's 70-year history. Now, the park launched a 66-day countdown to the announcement last month. To keep up with that countdown, you can go online to 66daysatsea.com. All right, coming up after the break, your local forecast, sports with Kurt Gooksell, and Inform with Ellie Jarrett. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.